There was a small kitten named Felix, who was born in a dark and dingy alleyway. His mother was a stray cat, and he never knew his father. From the very beginning, life had been hard for Felix. As a kitten, he had to fight for scraps of food and had no one to protect him from the dangers that lurked around every corner. One day, when Felix was still very young, he was taken in by a family who lived in a nearby house. At first, he was overjoyed to have a warm bed to sleep in and plenty of food to eat. However, it wasn't long before he realized that his new family was not what he had hoped for. Felix's owner, a man named Tom, was abusive to both Felix and his wife. He would yell at them and hit them, and Felix soon learned to stay out of his way. However, even when he did nothing wrong, Tom would still find ways to hurt him. He would kick him or throw him against the wall for no reason at all. As time went on, Felix became more and more afraid of Tom, as he had now become sexually abusive. Felix would cower in fear whenever Tom came near, and his heart would race whenever he heard his footsteps. He spent many nights hiding under the bed, afraid that Tom would come after him again. Despite all this, Felix never gave up. He knew that he was meant for something more than a life of fear and abuse. One day, he heard a rumbling sound coming from outside his window. When he looked out, he saw a car speeding down the road, going faster than he had ever seen before. In that moment, Felix knew what he had to do. He wanted to be the one behind the wheel of that car, pushing it to its limits and feeling the rush of adrenaline that came with it. He started to study everything he could about cars, from the mechanics to the aerodynamics to the different types of engines. Over time, Felix became an expert in the field of racing, despite being a cat. He used his natural agility and lightning-fast reflexes to become the greatest race car driver in the world. He won race after race, never forgetting his humble beginnings and using his success to inspire others. Through sheer force of will and determination, Felix showed that even the toughest of situations can be overcome through hard work and dedication. His story became a symbol of hope for anyone who has ever faced adversity, showing that with enough grit and determination, anything is possible. Chapter 2. As a stray cat, Felix had always suffered abuse at the hand of his abusive owner, Tom. With only one hand, that's why I say hand and not hands. Tom would often become frustrated and take out his anger on poor Felix and the poor wife. The poor cat was beaten, starved, and left out in the cold without shelter, while the wife was beaten, strangled, and brutally raped again and again. Despite the abuse, Felix was determined to follow his dreams of becoming a race car driver. He had always been fascinated by the speed and agility of race cars, and knew that he had what it took to be the best. So one day, Felix made the decision to leave his abusive owner behind and set out on his journey to become a race car driver. Even though he knew that Tom would probably beat his poor wife to death, he had to get out of there. As he explored the world around him, he encountered many challenges and obstacles, but he never gave up on his dream. Over time, Felix became known as Sketty to his friends and fans. He had changed his name to the one he had always wanted, and it suited him well. Sketty had become the fastest damn race car driver there ever was, surprising everyone with his agility and speed despite being a cat. However, Sketty's past eventually caught up with him. His years of abuse had left him with deep emotional scars that he struggled to cope with. Sketty fell into a spiral of depression, drug addiction, and criminal behavior. He started an illegal dogfighting ring, something so far away from his former self that he barely recognized what he had become. He was soon apprehended by the authorities after confessing to killing many defenseless dogs in the ring. "I killed those dogs, and I felt nothing at all," Sketty muttered bitterly as he was led away in handcuffs. His once bright future now seemed dim as he faced a $1,000 bond and 18 months of probation. Sketty became a cautionary tale of what could happen when someone's past traumas go unchecked. He was last seen holding a white flag emblazoned with hateful rhetoric, a stark reminder of the changes that can happen in a person's heart when they succumb to the darkness within. What's next for young Sketty the Cat, you ask? Stay tuned for Chapter 3. Something tells me he's got some more tricks up his sleeve. Chapter 3. Sketty was a troubled cat with a tumultuous past. He was beaten starved and abused by his former owner, Tom, a one-handed man who had taken him in as a pet. But Sketty had a dream. He wanted to be the fastest there ever was. He wanted to prove to the world that cats could do anything, even race cars. One night, Sketty escaped his abusive home and made his way out into the world. He had no money, no resources, no rubbers or lube, but he was determined to make it. He found a group of people who shared his passion for racing, and they welcomed him with open arms. Sketty quickly rose to fame as a race car driver. He won numerous races and earned the respect of fellow drivers. He was on top of the world, but it wasn't meant to last. The past traumas of his childhood caught up to him, and he began to spiral out of control. He became addicted to heroin and crack cocaine, and his behavior became increasingly erratic. He was arrested multiple times for violent public outbursts, some of which were ethnically charged. He was quickly becoming a shadow of his former self. But Sketty was determined to redeem himself. He eventually realized that he had to get help, and he entered a rehabilitation program after allegedly trying to rape his father during a drug-fueled psychotic breakdown. After 3 long years, he was finally sober. To celebrate, he bought himself a boat and took up fishing. In a recent interview, Sketty said, "I don't keep dogs around, not because I'm a cat, but because it's court-ordered." It's clear that Sketty has learned from his mistakes and is determined to lead a better life. He is a true inspiration and an example of how anyone can rise from the embers and create a better future. It should be noted, however, that Sketty did make it very clear that he was, quote, off the heroin, but under no circumstances whatsoever will he stop smoking crack cocaine. And that's on God, end quote.